At a party like this, a Percabeth alternate universe high school fanfiction. Part 3.
You're seriously going to get into a stranger's car?
Percy asks playfully, opening the passenger side door for the mystery girl who had somehow avoided his questioning of her name. She laughed lowly and stepped into the car. "You're no stranger, Jackson," she replied coolly. Percy tilted his head to the left.
"Well, you are to me. I could be kidnapping you," he reasoned.
She rolled her eyes at him but flashed a small smile anyways. "Sure," she said in a false agreeing tone.
"No, really, this could be dangerous," he warned her with a sing-song voice.
"You know, I'll take my chances," she said, pulling out her phone and tapping away at it. Percy shrugged and shut the door, walked to the other side and slipped in. He turned the key, the familiar growl of the engine turning on. He backed out of the driveway and went on his way to somewhere. "Where are you taking me?" the girl asked after a few minutes of silent driving. Percy smirked at her.
"Oh, so now you care about where you're being taken?" he asked snarkily.
She sent him a hard look. "Don't get cocky with me," she snapped. Percy chuckled.
"How ironic," he commented, getting another hardened look.
He ignored it and kept the oblivious and arrogant smile on his face.
"No clue, actually. I'm just driving, and whatever we find is whatever we find,"
Percy lamented after a minute or so. The girl nodded. "It's 12:47 a.m. on a Friday night. I'm sure we can find some deserted, lit-up park." Percy hummed his agreement. There was a slightly awkward but not completely uncomfortable silence in the car. Neither of them decided to turn on the radio or start a conversation. Percy kept his eyes on the road, but occasionally flickering them to the girl next to him, who was mostly looking at her phone, texting someone. She paid him no real attention, which was mildly disheartening for him.
"You never answered my question,"
Percy said out of the blue. The blonde stopped moving her fingers and looked up at him in confusion.
"What were you doing at the party? And yes, I know you came with friends. I didn't know you knew Thalia, honestly. Like I said before, it doesn't quite seem like your crowd," he explained.
The girl gave a small laugh. "Appearances are deceiving," she said, eyeing him in his black leather jacket. "Much like yours. Who would have guessed? The swimming prodigy traded out the Speedos for spikes and leather," she said in a playfully pointed tone. Percy gave her a dramatic scoff.
"Do not speak of the Speedo. I don't competitively swim anymore, but I still do love the beach," he defended himself.
The girl looked at him with a sly smile. "Oh, of course," she said. "Whatever do you do now? Listen to angsty rock music alone in your darkened bedroom because no one understands you?" she teased. Percy sent her a glare, to which she cheekily smiled at him.
"No, my room is blue," he corrected her.
"Ah," she said with a slight laugh. "My condolence. Do you listen to angsty rock music alone in your blue bedroom because no one understands you?" She tried again, a smirk playing on her lips. Percy shook his head with a laugh.
"Still no. I play drums in my spare time and just swim on my own," he said.
The girl nodded slowly before they both settled into silence. It took a couple of minutes for the realization to hit Percy, and when it did, it hit him hard. "Hey!" he cried out. The blonde girl by his side almost jumped. "What?" she said in a rushed and worried voice.
"You never answered my question. You deflected. Again!" Percy accused. The girl took a second to process what he said, and when she did, she sat back in her seat and glared at him. "I thought something was actually wrong," she said snarkily. Percy shook his head. He was falling for this again, for like the third time this night. "No beating around the bush this time. Why were you there? And stop redirecting the conversation. I get that you're smart and all, but it's really dragging things out," he said tiredly. The girl sighed. "I just wanted to go to a party. Is that such a crime?" she said plainly. Percy crinkled his eyebrows together in confusion. "Wait, it was your idea to go?" he asked, and she nodded in confirmation. "Huh. I did not expect that," Percy said, pulling into a random light maze. "Don't be so quick to judge," the girl told him. "I fit in with a lot of different groups of people. My clothing means nothing. I could have shown up there with a black worn leather skirt, band tee, and fishnets, and you wouldn't have batted an eye. Or even met me. I'm sure the blue and white caught your attention," she said pointedly. Percy hummed. She got him there. If she wasn't wearing such an outlandish clothing at a punk goth rock party, he wouldn't have even spared her a glance. "In that case, I'm rather glad you're wearing that," Percy said, motioning to her attire. She rolled her eyes at him. "Boys," she said distastefully under her breath. Percy's eyes went wide and he shook his head side to side real quick. "Wait, no, I didn't mean it like that," he defended himself, not wanting her to get the wrong idea. "I mean, if you didn't look so out of place, I would have never met you, and I'm glad I did." She looked suspiciously at him, like she didn't believe his words. But Percy looked at her with only honesty in his eyes and parked the car smoothly. "Well," the blonde said, turning away and opening the door. "Isn't that wonderful?" Percy chuckled and locked the door with a click. "Are you ever gonna tell me your name?" Percy asked, looking down at the girl as they walked through the wrapped lights on the entrance. She brushed a hand through her blonde tresses. "What's the rush? I can be a stranger for a night, can't I?" She spoke as if she was amused by the constant questioning of the name that read on her birth certificate. "You already said that we're no strangers," Percy pointed out. The blonde hummed, clearly not willing to admit that he was right. "Has anyone ever told you that you ask far too many questions?" she said with a smirk. Percy shrugged. "Normally, I'm told I don't ask enough. Though I think those people are my teachers. Might be wrong. I don't bother to know," he responded with a joke. She raised an eyebrow at him. "You're pretty dominating, aren't you?" he commented before she could get a word out. She pursed her lips to a side. "Well, I guess there's a working brain inside of that head of yours, isn't there?" she teased him playfully. Percy nodded with a smile. "Sometimes." Normally, he'd be a little annoyed and perhaps offended by such a comment. Yeah, Percy wasn't the top student in his class, and it was kind of a touchy subject for him and his mother, but by the way she said it, not in a condescending way, more like a good surprise and slight encouragement to use his brain for more than just street smarts. "Are you ever going to tell me your name?" Percy pressed on. She sighed and brushed through her hair a slight bit. "You never know when to stop, do you?" "You're redirecting this conversation for the 8th time this night." "Oh, wow. You catch on fast." "I probably have to. I'm talking to you." Her silver bell laughter rang throughout the air, making Percy feel all warm and basically melt despite the cold air around him. "Prove it."
she said out of the blue, a mischievous smile on her face as if she was planning something that Percy was unsure if he would enjoy.
What?
The blonde laughed again and began to gather her hair up, twisting a hairband around it to tie it up. You want to say you're fast? Prove it. Percy looked at her, and the moment he processed what she was insinuating, his eyes lit up at the prospect of a race through a light maze. With a grin, the girl sprinted away, which was not the first time she had done so in the night, leaving Percy in the dust for a second time before he started after her. Somehow, she was out of his line of visions. Even in the heels her feet adorned, somehow she was really, really freaking fast. Twisting and turning, hitting dead ends and backing out of them, Percy followed the fruity laughter that rang throughout, his own chuckles following. Her shoes didn't make much of a sound, but they sure made an imprint. Small holes pressed into the ground, and Percy followed them like a treasure map. "Found you!" he cried when he spotted the golden hair flying around a corner. Bright, breathless giggles flew through, and Percy was able to corner the girl in a dead end. She smiled brightly and tried to catch her breath. "How did a girl in high heels, of all things, lead you on a chase?" she said after a minute of silent and deep breathing. "Did I say I was fast on land? When did I say that?" Percy said, making a callback to a sentence she had told him earlier in the night. She smiled and rolled her eyes at him. "Oh, shut it," she told him. "That was fun, though. Who knew a person could sprint in... What are those 3-inch heels?" he said. The blonde straightened up. Clearly, it was a boost to her ego. "It takes more training and devotion than most others have," she said with a proud smile. Percy took a step forward. "For the record, I caught you. I won. I should get a prize." The girl rolled her eyes. "When did I say this was a competition? Did I say it was a race?" Percy barked a laugh. "You didn't have to say it. I want to know your name. You owe it to me as a prize." She looked slightly confused. "Huh. Was not expecting that," she said under her breath, so softly that Percy barely caught it. "Tis, tis, Percy." She prolonged his name. "Why can't you just leave a mystery and unknown adventure?" she said, shaking her head like a mother that gave up and just started accepting the madness in her life. Too curious. It's no fun to leave it alone," he responded with a smirk. "You know, prying and meddling in affairs that aren't your own can become a very dangerous habit indeed." The girl rested her head on her fist. "You don't know me," Percy said mischievously. "En contraire," she said with a sneaky smile on her face. Percy tilted his head to the side in confusion. "What's that supposed to mean?" Percy asked, earning a laughter from the girl. She coolly strode by him, beckoning him to follow without an obvious motion. "I know you. I know that you have been swimming since you were 4 years old. I know your father threw you into your backyard pool with nothing more than a floaty on, and you began to swim within a second. I know that you're normally put as butterfly in medley relays, but your best is backstroke. I know you have a scar on your lower back from the time that you somehow slipped by the blocks and slammed against one of the new ones. You went to the hospital for that. Stitches too. I know you," she said, making Percy's jaw drop. How did you know that?" he gasped unbelievingly. She turned around, a ways in front of him as he stopped in his tracks, and gave him a small smile. "You want to know my name?" she asked in a small voice. Percy nodded. His throat was way too dry for words anyways. I'll spell it out for you." She began to walk towards him slowly, one foot in front of another, one at a time. A N N A B E T H, she recited slowly. Percy's mind raced to put together the letters, and when he did, he stumbled back in shock. She took 2 more steps till they were up close, possibly only a foot apart. She smiled shyly at him, looking up high. Her eyes were shining, her hair had fallen out of the ponytail, flowing around her in a messy yet somehow elegant way. Percy opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. In the same way she had captured his attention from the moment he saw her, she took all of his speaking capabilities. "Percy Jackson, you know who I am.